beginning transmission of Music Bizz Radio. Thank you for listening. Here is your host, David Richards.
Hello and welcome to Music Bizz Radio. I'm your host, David Richards. We have another great show for you today. Our special guest will be producer, educator, and drummer Ivan Hampden Jr. He's played with many greats over the years. We'll be talking about his career and his life and what he's doing now. We will also be having a special discussion with Raleigh, Durham musician Ben Palmer. We'll be talking about what it's like to be a professional musician. I'll also be doing my review on the Zoom H6. And of course, as always, we'll be having our weekly In the Shed. Before we start today's show, I'd like to invite you to check us out on musicbizzradio.com. You can also go to Facebook and give us a like on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/musicbizzradio. Music Bizz Radio is free programming. We also give you a chance to contribute to the show and help us to continue our broadcasting. You can go to musicbizzradio.com for more information, or you can go to GoFundMe/musicbizzradio. Okay, we have a very special guest. I'm very excited to have him on the show, a very good friend, and I've been lucky enough to work with him several times, and he has worked with some of the top celebrities and acts in the world of music for 17 years. He was the drummer for Luther Vandross. He's performed with many amazing acts: Roberta Flack, Chaka Khan, Jennifer Lopez, Bonnie Raitt, Stevie Wonder, Dionne Warwick. The list goes on, Gladys Knight, and Vanessa Williams as well. So and more. I mean, the list is insane. He's also a fantastic producer and arranger, and he has been on some Grammy Award situations with Best R&B Album, Dance with My Father, which was a beautiful Luther Vandross song. I'm glad to know him, ladies and gentlemen. It is Ivan Hampden Jr.
What's happening, Dave?
How you doing? We do have a rule on the show that you cannot have a better voice than the host. And, being here, we're actually coming to you live from, live.
Yes.
We're coming to you live from Hamptown Music Institute in Clayton, North Carolina.
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
Glad to be able to come out here and see you again today. So
yes.
We're very glad to have you on the show.
Glad to be here, man.
And for those of you that don't know Ivan, he's a fantastic drummer, producer, done many things. Fantastic drummer, though. That's your main gig.
That's
your main gig.
Yeah.
So you originally from New York?
Yeah. Born and raised in Manhattan. Grew up in Harlem, between Harlem and the Bronx, and cut my teeth there. Learning how to play in the bars and around the city. Man, it was exciting times.
So you grew up in New York and went on to tour with many acts and done some fantastic stuff. And one of the things that is big on your resume, obviously, is working with Luther Vandross.
Oh yeah, Luther was probably one of the pinnacle points, man, for me. Kind of following Yogi Horton, the great Yogi Horton. I was in Ashford and Simpson's band, which Yogi was the drummer before me, and went on with Luther. And a few years later, Yogi was gone, and my phone was ringing. After they went through quite a few auditions, the stories Nat tells me, they were auditioning drummers for about a week or so, 2 weeks. Nat finally calls me and says, "Look, man, I've been trying not to call you. I've stolen so many musicians from Ashford and Simpson. I'm trying not to talk. They're gonna kill me." He says, "I gotta listen to one more guy." And the drummer he mentioned was an awesome friend and drummer. And he calls me back. He says, "Man, come meet me at the house and pick up this music." Call me back a few hours later. So that started that, and the rest was history, man. A lot of growth, a lot of learning at a good point.
So you were obviously Luther Vandross had an amazing career, and just one of the premier performers, vocalists, producers, singers, the whole 9 yards. That must have been really amazing to be a part of that core group and be able to contribute and be on those records and play all those great shows.
I don't think it kicked in once I was pulled in, but as time went by and doing those first tours, and it was such a bigger thing, just to be in 20,000 seaters everywhere, and I had done some of those by then, but Luther was just moving on such a larger scale from what I had known before, and he was great, man. He was loyal. He would ask for music when he was going in the studio. You don't have many artists do that. Come to the band's dressing room, say, "Hey guys, I'm recording. Who's got music?" And I was fortunate enough to get a couple things on, a few records, and with Nat and I really bonded around in a creative way. Nat Adderley Jr. And he brought me in to the studio part of Luther's magic. And that was cool, man. I just learned so much with Marcus Miller there, and Nat and Luther, and some of the other people, Jason Miles, who did a lot of work with us. It just was a door of, it was just a family event every time. And the creativity was amazing. I learned so much about recording and producing there. It was a university almost, It was, you couldn't pay for what we all learned in the room with Luther,
So, and this was just, some of the glory days of true R&B music, for some of the, just an amazing lineup of star players, not only in the groups, the sidemen and the backup vocalists and everything, and just the venues and the popularity. That you were just in the prime of that whole time.
Yeah, it was magical, man. It was a prime. It was like, I think you said that right. I think it was about where the industry was, where music was, and pretty much, you think about the industry in the 80s and Michael Jackson and coming. Well, Luther's first record started right there, right behind that new surge of bringing the industry back. So he rode this wave that, and of course what he brought was different and amazing. He was bigger than life, man. He was, great, funny. He kicked the dozens back and forth with you in a minute. Talk about your mama quick, and we would laugh. We'd all, kick it back and forth. He loved being one of the cats and hanging out, and but that time of the industry was really magical. I think, like you're saying, just so many great artists were around. It was, the labels were in a different state than they are now. Just the whole working and the mechanics of the industry. Radio was different. So many things were different, and Luther was a special artist in that crowd. He was his sound, his writing, his style, and he was a complete perfectionist at every level, at everything, even on the stage and lighting, sound, everything. It was, he had magnifying glass on everything. It was amazing, but it taught me a lot, things that you might not, we go through and do gigs all the time. You play with all these people, but when you sit down and you're part of the creative end of that, once you get in there, at least for me, once I got into that part of his camp, man, it was like, where's my notepad?
Yeah, and he taken obviously way too early from us, and just an amazing voice. And you hear the records, you hear the recordings, and my experience when you're around, there's special voices out there. When you're around them and you're in person with those voices, you just like you never get used to it.
Yeah.
And he had one of those voices.
Yeah, he definitely did, man. And some of the other people you named too were part of that family. Roberta Flack, Vanessa Williams. They were all friends. Luther actually was pushed out of Roberta's band by Roberta, who told him, Vandross, go make a record. Get out of here. You too good to be sitting in the background. And she pushed him. And he ran off and made that first Never Too Much, and with all those hits on there, man. Yeah, just for them to recognize each other, was exciting. And then to get to work with those people. Chic, Nile Rodgers. Luther did the background arrangements for Nile on that first Big Chic record. Good Times and all those songs. Luther's all over those songs. And Nile to this day will tell you, Luther saved him and Luther taught him. He said after that first record, he said it was like going to school. I could do all the others. I learned so much from Luther. And I think Luther did that for a lot of people. He was loyal like that, and he would come out for you if you needed him. And he did it for me too, So that must have been an amazing experience. So it was a great gig, obviously. Oh, so all around.
Great gig.
All around.
You can't beat that. But growing up in New York, you were a pretty young man when you got started. So, we've had many guests on the show, and we've talked about the idea. A lot of people have moved to the city and gotten in the music scene.
Right.
You were there.
Yeah.
And you were one of these guys that went out. You went out to all the sessions and hung out, went to all the clubs and stayed out there and played
the
every
rehearsal
night.
halls.
Yeah.
I would go out and sit outside rehearsals. I knew Angela Bofield was in because I got to meet the bass player or, and meet different people. And, we rehearse here. I'd go hang and just see if I can, meet the rest of the band. And eventually those things happen, and to go out to the sets to get an opportunity to be heard and play, and it paid off. You go out, and I was out there young. Like you said, I pretty much knew that music was for me by 12, 13. By 13, I had gotten a paid gig. I actually got paid. Somebody, the band was around the corner from my house at some little bar, and the drummer didn't show up. I used to practice on the third floor, and the guys in the band knew I was up there. Hey, who's the kid? Go get the kid. And I pushed my drum set around the corner, and I played with this organ trio. And at the end of the night, he probably cheated me, but he gave me about $20. Hey, kid, shut up. Here, go.
And you were glad to have it.
I was. I would have did it for nothing. Never thought about being paid at that moment, and that just opened up a whole nother door for me. Wow, I can get paid for this. I love this much, and they want to give me money. Really? It was that, and I went from there. From that organ trio to another one, and then the neighborhood band. Through high school and gigging on the weekends, showing up tired Monday for school. And
well, we were all tired anyway. It didn't matter if we were playing Monday. And I think we still are when that day comes around. But we're talking to Ivan Hampden Jr., fantastic drummer for many, many people, and still active playing and doing some really cool stuff. So you're running around, you're doing the thing in the city. You're a kid, you're running around, pulling your drums around. You're meeting people, you're playing, you're getting better.
Yep.
And what was your first big break?
I'd say Eartha Kitt.
Oh, wow.
Eartha Kitt. So I met a friend by the time I got to college. I started out at Bronx Community College in the Bronx. This was 1977. And a good buddy of mine, Rudy Bird, fantastic percussionist, worked with Miles for a little while, Kenny Garrett's band. I think occasionally he still does work with Kenny. Lauryn Hill. I mean, he's done quite a bit. And we met then. We were both in school studying percussion and music. And he was part of the Dance Theater of Harlem. And he dragged me down. He says, hey, man, they're paying stipends if you come down. We play dance class, and they have a percussion ensemble. And that turned into the ensemble was performing with the orchestras. And they would get in New York City Ballet people, all those guys that worked in the theater. And they would push us, these young, 8, 19, 20-year-olds in there with them. And that was going on for a while, and I was still gigging, and eventually a couple of the guys I met out there, one of them brought me in for the Eartha. Hey, man, we need a drummer for Eartha Kitt. And I went and did it. At that time, I was really just getting my music reading together because it was an all-chart gig, and I was just getting it together enough to get out there, and it was working for me. They were enjoying my feel, how I played. And I was able to get through those charts. And, man, I must have worked with Eartha for about 5 years. And during that same time, back in the neighborhood uptown in Harlem, there was a young guy named Curtis. Well, Curtis was the little brother to one of the guys we hung out with. I went away for a summer. I come back, and Curtis is Curtis Blow on the radio talking about These Are the Breaks. Singing, had a hit record. We used to send him to the store to get, hey, bring back my change, And he took us out right around the same time on a Rick James tour. Now, this is the first time I'm out in an arena. New Edition had just come out. So it was Curtis Blow, New Edition, the Mary Jane Girls. And that was their first year, too, with Rick, and then Rick. And so between Eartha and Curtis, it was kind of as far as touring, I had done a little bit of recording and actually heard myself on the radio by then once or twice. So that was exciting too. So all those things kind of happened all around the same time and just splintered out, and your name gets moved around. People, hey, who's the new kid? Oh yeah, he's good, blah, 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 and yeah.
So, quite a career. You've been all over the place, traveled the world, and been in the ultimate dream gigs, man.
Blessings, man.
Very
Just
cool.
Blessings and hard work. Work
and
hard.
Lots of drumming.
Oh, yeah. That's the gig. If you don't do it, somebody else will.
Right, exactly. So, and you're still working a lot. You actually recently worked with Vanessa Williams.
Yeah. Great friend of mine, JT Lewis, is her regular drummer, and he was unavailable for a couple dates, and this happened before. I've subbed for him for Vanessa, but just this past February and April, I did 2 different dates. The February date was 50-piece orchestra with her. It was fantastic, lots of music. Musical director has been working with Sting. It was exciting. Musicianship, the musicians on the stage. Vanessa's a dream artist to work for. I mean, she's just the sweetest and loyalist person. I mean, it's the last time I subbed for JT was probably 99, 2000, and I guess nobody has subbed since. He calls me back in 2015.
Lucky you were still around.
Hey, I ain't going. I'm still kicking. But yeah. So that was great. And as a matter of fact, next week I'll be in New York working with Stevie Wonder's bass player and with the Zoom Corporation, and we're going to be doing some things up there together. Nate Watts is Stevie's musical director and bass player. Awesome musician, awesome friend. And, in between doing that, some producing, working with young artists down here in North Carolina. And, of course, the school, Hamptown Music Institute, Stay pretty busy. Stay pretty busy running around.
And so you also have a couple of sons out there that are drummers as well.
Yeah, man, the Hampden legacy of drumming. So I'll start out. The youngest one, Brevin, which you know very well, and has worked with you, is up in New York, finishing his master's degree at NYU. Great program. He's excited. My middle son, Iaji, is out in Los Angeles. Has been out there. Goodness, it's really close to 10 years now, and has had some nice successes. You know, worked with Macy Gray, Phil Perry, a bunch of smooth artists, smooth jazz artists, and a few Disney artists. You know, so he's been able to show up on Jimmy Kimmel and American Idol, and you know, I get to call, hey man, I'm on TV tomorrow. You know, so that's great. The oldest son is a drummer as well. He took a different route at the moment, but he's working his way back to the music. And Brian is his name. That's my oldest. So yeah, those guys are great, man. They've all taught under me at different times, you know, over the years. So
and there's plenty of extra drum sets for everybody.
Keep your hand. Go get your own. Hey, Dad, what's that?
I think I may have seen Brevin playing a couple drums that I've seen a couple times here and there.
Oh yeah, you seen my stuff on the gig.
That's okay.
Without me.
That's all right. That's what happens. At least you don't wear the same shoe size. So.
There you go.
That I know of.
Hey.
Anyway, so so you've had a fantastic career that continues today, and let's talk a little bit about the music school. So
yeah,
you're giving back in a really fantastic way, back to youth. You have Hamptown Music Institute that you've started.
Yeah, January 2014. Found a building in downtown Clayton, and was lucky enough to find you and another instructor, and we've been in here chucking it out. Some great young talent around. It's very exciting, very rewarding. You know, to give back. I love people. I love the kids, man, and I think some of that has kept me going and young. You know, in my mind at least, my head says something else.
You look pretty young. You look pretty young.
The hair's gone, so it says something different.
There's young men. There's very young men without hair, so I don't think that's a problem.
But no, it's been an exciting ride. The city has really been responsive and adopted us. They've been working with us, and you know, I'm just looking for a future and growth. And it's been a slow year and a half, but it's moving. It's steady. We got kids coming in and out the door, adults. You know, occasionally, you know, I see a few professional guys that are out here running around doing gigs, just coming in just to get a touch up. You know, some of the local players, and you know, and because of my sons, a lot of the local musicians are referring to me as Pops. So I get the phone call, hey, Pops, I need to come see you, man. I got to fix this stuff. Something's wrong.
Did you ever think that day would come?
You know, it's funny, man. My father's father, everybody called Pops. When he passed, my father would refuse to be called Pops. That's his dad's name.
Okay.
So it skipped over to me.
Yeah, so you took it. Which I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that still know you as the young, smiling, happy guy on tour that just walked around smiling. Everybody loves.
Hey, man, you know, enjoy. You got to enjoy the journey.
And if you don't know Ivan Hampden Jr. personally, you will know that he's a very joyful guy. Oh, and really, people love him, and a fantastic player. Just doing some great stuff. Do you see any Ivan Hampden Jr. mini-me's that are coming through to the music school?
Oh, my goodness, man. There are some incredible, in particular, there's probably a handful of first and second graders that are these gifted, natural, incredible, I call them little beasts because, oh my goodness, you've seen some of these guys. Oh my goodness, they're amazing young players. And to be able to help shape those gifts and give them an opportunity to develop the gift even further and really grow it is amazing, you know. And even over the years, you know, I've been in this building for about 1.5 years now, but I've been teaching in Clayton for the last 11 years. So frequently I see students that have gone off to college, you know, majored in music. They come back, they visit, they want advice about, you know, now they're talking about business and, you know, industry and things like that. So it splinters off. It comes full circle. One of the young artists that I'm producing now was a drum student, and a couple of years ago he comes back after maybe 3 years of not seeing him, and I'm assuming he wants to play drums. He says, "No, I play guitar now. I write songs. I sing." And I sit down with this kid, and he's got great songs. He can sing. So we're in the process of working on him and, you know, getting him shopped up. We're actually doing some mixing now. Great Grammy Award engineer friend of mine is down in Dallas working on some of the tracks now. So it's a lot of great young talent that have a lot of promise, you know, and I know that a small fraction of the kids that come through your building and the people will actually go into this business. But I feel like I'm handing them some tools, some life lessons inside that classroom, to, you know, confidence building, problem solving, you know, all those things that you need in life. And music gives so much, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And last year, the first year of the school, you did a performance in the town here.
Oh, yeah.
We did a performance.
We did it, man. We did it.
And it was at the theater
we
here.
worked our brains out.
We did. We had
one.
a great group of musicians.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't your typical recital type show. It was a performance style show. I think everybody was kind of in shock at what we put at them.
Yeah.
So.
Yes, and excited for the next thing.
Absolutely.
Which I can say now is, I'll give a date later, but November.
Right.
We are planning to do the second show, and the same thing, you know. The concept for me as an educator of music has been to do it from the perspective of my industry experience, from the industry. So teaching these young kids what's actually out there in the world of music, in the music industry, and showing them, you know, there's a lot of ways to learn music, and a lot of the schools, there's an elementary school kind of a way that things happen, but I think even the younger kids, they're so wide open, they can comprehend, you know, if you teach it to them, and they grab onto it. And man, almost every school in what, a 30-mile radius has one of our kids in it, or a couple of them. We have we get to touch so many, and we're working on building that as big as we can get it. Yeah.
Well, I think you're doing a great job in Hamptown Music Institute. You can check that out on hamptownmusicinstitute.com. And you can see lots of photos, and there's a lot of smiling faces of Ivan Hampden Jr. on that as well.
Yes, and we're on Facebook.
Yes, on Facebook. Check that out for sure, and you will continue to perform.
Absolutely, can't stop.
And we will see you doing that. And I just want to thank you. You've been really great. It's been great to have you on. I knew I was going to have you on, and I just was waiting for the right time, and this was it.
Oh, so, Dave, hey, listen, man, congratulations on your show.
Thank you.
It's exciting. It's real great. And I'm loving seeing what you're bringing and who you're bringing, and you're just covering some good issues and different things. It's great, man.
Well, I appreciate it, and you were great, and thanks again for being on. So, Ivan Hampden Jr., everybody, thanks again.
All right, thank you.
All right. Stay with us. We will be right back with more Music Biz Radio right after this.
Hi, this is Arturo Sandoval, and you're listening to Music Biz Radio with David Richards.
Music Bizz Radio will be starting our Music Bizz Radio concert series. One of our first concerts is going to be from the world-famous jazz club Birdland, where we will be doing a live broadcast of the Steve Johns Family Band, and they will be performing their album Family live on Music Bizz Radio on a stream, and we will also have that show archived where you can listen to it at all times. And just a reminder, you can listen to all Music Bizz Radio shows in our archive and on musicbizzradio.com. Hello and welcome back to Music Bizz Radio. I'm your host, David Richards. We're now going to be talking a little bit about the Zoom H6 recorder. The H6 recorder is a step up from the H4n, which the H4n is still a fantastic recorder. I've been using that for years. I've got the two XLR inputs with the XY microphone stereo mic setup, where you can also do anywhere from 2 to 4 tracks on that, utilizing those built-in mics as well as your XLRs. On the H6, they've added quite a few features here. We still have the XY microphone, but it's removable, and you can actually go between that and a mono microphone that has individual controls. They've put a gain control on the actual microphone itself. They've also have now 4 XLR inputs, so you're dealing with 6 tracks here. You can record with 4 XLR mics in addition to the XY mic, which actually works as a very fantastic overhead drum mic and room mic, and I've used it to record gigs. If you're doing a small combo, you can literally get the entire performance on the recorder. And we're still using the SDXC memory cards, which is great. This is made for, they've kind of looked out for the video professional in this, the people that are using the DSLR cameras, and that gives you like tons and tons of audio options. Fantastic for that. But for the musicians, still great too. If you're doing a jazz combo, this is the perfect little recorder to get all your tracks. And then when you're done, you just pop your little SD card in the computer and import it into whatever DAW program you want and go to town on it. But I've always loved the microphones that are built in. The audio quality's been fantastic. They now have a color display so you can see the tracks. Quite a few improvements, still with the great, fantastic sound quality, and you can change the bit rates and a lot of flexibility. But now we're up to the 6 channels. I really like it, and a lot of people don't realize you can use this as a USB audio interface and plug it into your computer and literally use it as an interface in a DAW program and get all those nice XLR preamps. So the Zoom H6 recorder is fantastic. It's definitely a step up, and you really can't beat it for your money. Having the 4 for so many years, so reasonable and so rugged, and they've kept up the tradition of quality with the H6. I definitely encourage you to check it out. That's going to do it for our review. We're going to be right back right after this.
Hi, this is Tom Bones Malone, and you're listening to Music Bizz Radio with David Richards.
All right, welcome back to Music Bizz Radio. I'm your host, David Richards, and we have a very special guest actually in the Music Bizz Radio studio today. He is a professional musician, fantastic bass player and guitar player, and educator as well. He has been in the Raleigh, Durham area as a professional musician and performer and torch carrier of the music scene here for 26 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Ben Palmer.
Great to be here, Dave.
How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great.
I really appreciate you coming all the way out to the studio today.
Yes, well, I thought it would be better to do this in person, just more engaging.
We I played music with you here and there in the scene in the Raleigh-Durham area here, and we've done several jazz gigs together, and you play all types of music as a bass player and everything. And we kind of had a discussion I guess, through social media a little bit about
Yes.
being a professional musician. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, about people being in different markets, different size markets, and some of the things that they can think about, you know, and what they have to do to make a real living as a musician. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about like your background and how you got started in music.
Okay. Well, before I was a professional, I did have some training in school. I played cello for several years, but realized that classical music really wasn't my thing. I think I was really just jamming along with the orchestra. I didn't read music that well, but I was a really good listener, and so I ended up just copying the people next to me more than I was reading. And when I realized that there was a venue where that was what was treasured most, listening and responding, I got into that instead, and meaning jazz and blues and rock and roll. And
You just wanted to respond the way you wanted to respond.
yeah,
That's much more fun.
I found that was really my strong point, and still is. I mean, I can read music, but I play much better when I'm just listening.
Right. Well, in jazz music, obviously, it's a communication back and forth, and it's more. I often think that you're doing more listening than playing a lot of times. Like you'll play, but it's more of a response to what's going
Absolutely.
on. So, and that's what makes playing jazz music so much fun.
Yes, indeed.
Doesn't mean everybody that's listening on the outside can get what we're doing, but we don't really care about them anyway.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, I do actually. I that's one thing when I meet somebody who doesn't play at all, I like to ask them some questions about how they react to music, because at this point, I really feel like I'm locked out of that kind of understanding. I'm
Right.
evaluating what's going on harmonically and rhythmically with the music, rather than just having a impression of it. What does it
Right.
make me feel? Like far out jazz, really free jazz. I think, okay, well, sometimes I don't quite get what's going on here. So how could a listener understand the intellectual level that's happening? But maybe they're not, you know, maybe they're just getting a feeling from it, and it's still valid as a listener. So
Yeah, and it's interesting to get that objective point of view.
Exactly.
And when I do gigs, there's always one or two people in the audience that kind of give you that extra look. And I think I talked about this on an earlier show, where they're kind of really connecting with what you're doing. And they usually come up to you after the show and they'll say, "Wow, man, I like what you're doing. I really was digging your sound," and stuff like that. And during that, they've really kind of studied, or like really you've hit them in a way. And to me, I get more of a thrill out of one or two people in the audience having that, you know, connection and feeling good than necessarily pleasing the entire crowd. I think there's something more to that for me.
Dig.
But you know, it's definitely jazz is it never is in stone. It's always has a different reaction, a different emotion, a different feel. There's never like, oh, here's another, we're doing jazz again. It's never that feeling for me. So pretty crazy. So anyway, so you played cello.
Played cello, moved to guitar and bass about 1978. Mostly did blues, but I guess pretty quickly got into jazz, and you know, was in the jazz band in high school and college. So after that, I struck out on professional scenes, tried to get gigs, and had the great fortune to play with some really great musicians over the years, really super piano players and drummers and sax players and singers and guitarists also, and just really learned a lot from the people I played with. That's tunes that I play. I usually don't know the quintessential version of them. If somebody asks me, it's like, "Oh, who plays that?" I'm like, my friend Kevin. I learn tunes from my friends, you know. I don't know who
My friend.
that's so almost all the
great.
tunes I know I'm learning the interpreted versions that my friends learned, and I kind of like it that way.
And where is Kevin today? What's he doing?
Kevin, I'm not sure where. I think he might be in Hungary.
That's great. So you, it's, so you were doing that. So you were picking up and playing all these different gigs and playing obviously different types of music.
Yes.
And what made you kind of gravitate towards jazz?
Well, I really like jazz because the name of the game is interpreting it and putting your own spin on it. It's not just playing the part. If you got an innovative way to do something, more power to you. That's what's prized in jazz playing, rather than just copying the part from the record or whatever. You get to create your own content. And so it's always growing. There's always room to get better too. It's not a matter of just like nailing the part and then you're done. You don't have to practice anymore. Just execute the part. It's always room to grow.
So was there a day that you remember where you said, you know what, this is what I want to do for a living. This is going to be what I want to do? Well,
that is a good question. I think in about 1980, I reckon, I decided that I would focus on playing bass rather than trying to put as much energy into playing guitar, just because I figured there were so many guitar players out there, they all needed a bass player. And guitar is so competitive. Odd thing is I'm playing more guitar now, or than I used to anyway. And I'm splitting up my time, which I also thought was kind of impractical before, but I've changed my tune on that. So actually, at that decision point in 1980, I was still not decided on being a professional musician. I thought that when I went to college, something else would arise that I was really into and excelled at, and that would be how I made my money, because I didn't really understand that there was any middle ground between being a hobbyist and being a big star. I didn't think you could just be a journeyman musician and just play gigs and make a living. They figured you had to be either famous or just doing it on the side. And I met a piano player, a friend of mine, Jim Crew, who had actually quit his job at RTP as a chemist to be a professional musician. And I thought, well, maybe it can be done. And we played together for many years. He was one of the people I learned a lot from. So I guess it was probably around 1987 or 8 when I realized that I wasn't going to get better at anything else. I was in the restaurant business and I was really making a pathetic wage. And my first kid came along. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to support a family on this money.
Yeah.
And I heard that you could make pretty good money playing wedding gigs. And I thought, I think I'm just going to call everybody I can think of that ever played a paying gig and try to start working professionally and make that my living.
Wow. And Jim Crew, very nice guy. I've actually done a couple projects with him, and he's awesome. And he definitely makes a living, and he does a lot of television and video games and soundtracks. I've worked on some PBS stuff with him and Discovery Channel stuff with him, and he is
total Jedi.
He's crazy, yeah. And he's a great player.
Oh, yeah.
And just a super guy.
Absolutely.
So he has he chose the right path in the music.
Yeah.
And he still gets to play his gigs and have his fun too.
He said he took that personality questionnaire, Briggs, whatever thing, and they said, you should be a musician. So he's like, okay. And I don't think it took that for me, but I realized myself that there was not going to be anything any better for me to do. And I really made the right decision.
Yeah. And so you've been in the Raleigh, Durham area for 26 years?
Well, longer than that,
but as a professional musician.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that we were talking about on the first of all, what do you think of this whole social media thing with music and being a musician?
It's kind of distracting. I spend too much time on Facebook. I'm going to say that right now.
Yeah.
But it's very effective. I think it's great for getting the word out. And it is nice to know what people are up to. And it does keep me pushing forward. I see people doing gigs and I would think, okay, I need to make sure I'm putting my gigs on Facebook too.
Right. It's a very interesting. I'm trying to remember how we did it before Facebook. Like
we go down to the coffee shop, make posters.
Right. But how did we know about each other's gigs besides that? I don't even.
Called each other on the phone. We saw each other at the bar.
It's crazy, man.
It does seem kind of weird.
You had to hang out at the bar a lot more back in the old days. Yeah. Now you don't have to do. We're older. So
the music store was also a place that I got in on the tail end of this when I started working at Music Loft in the late 80s. That was before internet sales and really even before mail order, because not everybody even had credit cards back then, and they were you'd send your check off and it'd be like, allow 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. So ordering something through the mail was really just not a way to do it.
Yeah, you would send a check. Isn't that
That's
just
right. You had to get the
unbelievable to me?
check clear and all that. So actually, everybody had to go to the music store. Mom and pop, the teenagers, the professionals, everybody. Pros coming through town would show up at the music store because they needed to get supplies and such. So the music store is really a great networking place. And that I got a job in the Music Loft. Was in sales for a while and then just did teaching, but that really helped a lot to get my career going.
And again, we're talking to Ben Palmer, and he is one of the top musicians and active musicians in the scene in the Raleigh, Durham area. And he's joining us here in the studio today. So one of the things that we talked about was, and I think there's a lot of people listening that have been on this musical journey where they've decided to be a professional musician.
Yes.
And we know that that is not always a beautiful, wonderful, flowery way to live. There's a lot of obstacles. There's great things and there's obstacles. What do you, and there's also, we also talked about there's certain people that are in certain scenes that are kind of the torch bearers of the scene, or they're getting things together. You, for one, have put a lot of different jam sessions and sessions together.
Yes.
And, even in the New York scene, everyone I've ever talked to that has kind of come up through the ranks to get to a higher point in their career all started going around to these sessions, playing, interacting, meeting people, that type of thing. So how important do you think, so Raleigh-Durham is, I think, 50th market or something like that. If you look at media markets, there's actually a good scene. There's a lot of music. It's a very friendly, music-friendly area. There's a pretty good support for jazz. There's a lot of jazz going on. We have some really good schools here, and we have some good people that are living down here that are players. How important do you think these jam sessions and these things are to kind of keep the scene rocking and rolling, or jazzing, we should say?
Very, I'd say. In fact, I just learned something that, I have 2 kids who play music and they're on the scene. My son plays drums in Raleigh scene and my daughter's at UNCG playing bass. And she says that people she talks to say, oh, your dad is a guitar player. Now, I've done like 10% of the gigs on guitar, mostly on bass. But I did this one jam session for about 3 years at the Blue Note Grill where I played guitar the whole time. And I guess I met a lot of people. A lot of people came through just seeing me play guitar. I remember playing bass one night, like, oh, you play bass too? Oh. I'm like, duh, of course I play bass. Playing bass, I did like 5,000 gigs on bass. You kidding me? So, yeah, the jam session turned me into being known as a guitar player all of a sudden. So yeah, getting out to the jam sessions, very important for the networking, getting out there and playing some, just hanging out, showing your enthusiasm and being there personally, better than Facebook.
Right. And, these venues that you've had jam sessions at several venues, and sometimes you'll have a session there and, it goes well, maybe musically, but maybe the venue's not completely happy with the result of the business they're getting, or, how the club owners get, very quirky and everything like that. So you'll have something that's going well, and then you end up having to move it to another place, and it's kind of a whole
dozens
thing.
Of locations over the years.
What keeps you doing that? Do you ever how come you're not tired of doing that?
Well, it's just too effective and productive and fun.
Yeah.
It's a way to have a regular weekly gig. I try to put them on off nights so that it brings in some business to the club when they would normally be slow. And also for convenience of the musicians, because they're probably gigging on the weekend. Do a Monday night jam session. Nobody's got a gig Monday night hardly, and people are more available. And so it's a way to have a regular weeknight gig. My weekend stays open. As far as like it being effective for the club. Now, club owners, listen up here.
Right.
It gives you advertising for the whole week, because you get free radio advertising.
Right.
You get free stuff in the news magazines too. Independent, they run you a free listing. So you get a lot of exposure that you'd have to pay for if you're just trying to advertise your restaurant or bar. So really, the cost of the musicians, that you're getting the musicians for free. You're getting you're paying for the advertising. I mean, that's what we're doing, trying to sell beer anyway.
Right. Well, I'm sold. You're booked.
Okay, great. Let's do a gig this Thursday. What do you think?
Oh, I think we can, or should, or we are.
We have one.
We do.
The 9th.
I know, the July 9th, we're playing together again. That's going to be fun. There's actually a couple really cool spots here in the Raleigh-Durham area that are being very supportive of music, and one of those is Sea Grace in Raleigh. And there's music there 5, maybe 6 nights a week, I think, something like that. Yeah. And, she's done a great job in there. It's got a little speakeasy feel in there, and if there were more of those places, it would be even better.
Yes, indeed.
So, and then, of course, Durham has a ton of places and a lot of different styles of music, and they're supportive out there. And so that's a whole thing. So aside from being your thing that you really love to do is play jazz.
Yes.
Okay. But you end up having, as a professional musician, you end up doing a lot of other gigs that aren't necessarily in that window.
Yes, it's true.
And how do you feel about that?
Well, if I ever am on a gig and I get any feeling of, wow, this is not my favorite kind of music, I always ask myself, I say, okay, so what other job in this joint do you want to be doing tonight? you want to even be the manager? Like, no. I don't want to. There's no other job in this venue that I want to be doing tonight, even if I'm not playing my favorite kind of music. I like all kinds of music.
Right.
I'm not a jazz purist. I enjoy jazz, and I think playing jazz helps all of your styles of music that you play, but it's certainly not the only valid style. A lot of people don't like jazz, so what are you going to do for them? You got to play something that people like.
Exactly. And being a horn player, we play whatever requires a horn.
That's right.
And I actually enjoy playing everything. I do have a little test though.
What's that?
I love most people, 99% of the people I've dealt with in music, I am friends with, and I think they're great, and everything's beautiful and flowery. But every once in a while, and it's very rare, I will have a situation where I'm playing in a musical situation that I found myself in, and I kind of get like this little sick feeling in my stomach.
Ooh.
And I don't like, it's not like I'm snobby about it or anything, but it's just kind of this, oh, this just doesn't feel right. There's too many things that don't feel right.
An inner feeling like that would be a good thing to listen to.
And I get that, and I'm like, ugh. And then I know it's time to go.
Pull the plug on that one.
And I don't know what that is, if it's just the chemistry or the situation or what I'm envisioning I'm supposed to be doing with music.
I don't think it matters. You get that feeling, you should bail.
Good time to go. Well, if I did that on a lot of things in life, I'd be bailing on a lot of things.
Well, you should do what you love, Dave, no matter what it is, whether it has to do with music or anything.
That's true.
Life's too short to be miserable.
That's true. So you play in a number of groups, you do a lot of different projects, and you have actually made this your living. You have made this, you would consider yourself a successful full-time musician.
Yeah, without having to go on the road, which I think is kind of amazing. I have 3 kids, and I really didn't want to abandon them. And I always felt like, okay, you go and do a tour, then you lose all of your local gigs. And then when you get back, you got no gigs, and you have to just go out on tour again. So I managed to play many nights, 4, 5, 6 nights a week within 50 miles of the house, come home every night. And I like to travel too. I've got some gigs out of town. I don't mind doing that once in a while, but it's not something that I'd want to do.
Yeah, because there's a lot of great players here that could be touring with the top acts in the world, in my opinion, that have families, young families, and are staying here, and you got to admire them for that.
We got high quality musicianship around here,
without a doubt.
As far as I can tell, I don't have a lot of stuff to compare to, but I'm pretty sure that we have.
No, it's good. There's talent. Definitely a large talent pool, and there's a high level of dedication. So let's talk about that. Do you think there's a responsibility of some of the top guys to kind of work together to try to keep the scene going for the club's interest and the public's interest in the music? How do you feel about
Absolutely.
that?
It would be great if we could have a little bit of solidarity, which we really don't have.
Right.
We got people who play for fun, and that drives down the price for everybody. And wages really haven't gone up this whole time that I've been playing. What I commented on somebody's post the other day, that I realized wages haven't gone up for a lot of people over this same period of time, not just musicians. So it's not just us that are, suffering and not getting what we should deserve after all these years. So we got some other social issues that driving prices down. It's not just people undercutting us wage-wise.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. Again, we're talking to Ben Palmer, and he is a musician here in the Raleigh, Durham area, and very good one, in fact.
Thank you, Dave.
I really enjoyed playing with you. So he, this is turning into a love fest. No, so that's another thing. So here's something that I think is definitely valid discussion. Generally, like, there's a thing that goes on in the New York scene where there's kind of this thing. You got a lot of these kids that are going to Juilliard and going to these, big heavy music schools up there that before they even go in, they're great players. Mm-hmm. They get up there, they're gigging like while they're in school, and they're playing these $50, they're playing these cafes that are giving everybody $50 and letting you put a jar out. Mm-hmm. And then then the next week they're playing Blue Note and they're making, whatever they make, or, different things like that, or they're going on the road. But there's these little cafe gig things where people are making and that's in New York, $50. And then after they graduate with their $100,000 education, they still have that $50 gig the next week.
Right.
So, yeah. And I think what has happened in that situation is you had people that were like, hey, $50 to go play music I like. That's great. I'll do it.
I'm just a student.
Yeah.
I should take what I can get.
And then not even just students. I think, I think really what happened in the early days was the cafe club owners, whatever you want to call it, basically said, hey man, I only got like $200, and if you get 4 guys in here, it's $50 a piece or whatever. You kind of get into those situations. So, you have that situation down here as well.
Yep.
And so what do we do about the situation where you'll have a venue, and you get this a lot. Hey, I'm just looking for a singer with a guitar, and I pay him like, I like maybe $50 in tips, and I'll feed him or something like that. And then you have some of these musicians that are starting out coming in and saying, hey man, no, I'll just do it. I'm just glad to be in here. And they play for free. They create that situation. And, maybe they get a couple drinks or they get dinner, or not even that. They're just, hey, wow, I'm playing at this cool place and people are seeing me. From a musician perspective that's doing this for a living, such as yourself, how do you balance that without being discouraged and trying to be, you don't want to be a jerk to those people, but at the same time, you're dealing with, undercutting, lowering the market value and all that kind of thing.
Well, as a right to work state, I'm not that familiar with how unions work, but I believe that that's what a union is for, actually. And I think in some eras of music history in certain places, the union has actually managed to keep that from happening. But it seems that the large perspective on unions is that they are not good for some reason. I'm not really sure how that happened, because unions actually are supposed to help the people who are working there, which is just kind of puzzling to me that it's not more popular, but it's a fact. So outside of having a union, I'm not really sure how you combat that. I mean, I guess I occasionally will take one of those $50 gigs if it's nearby, if it's with people I really want to play with.
Sure.
If I feel like there's some other kind of
Everybody's done it. Everybody's done it.
Some other kind of objective that could be accomplished. But it is a bit odd. I think the thing that's most disappointing to me really is that the clubs have decided that we're responsible for advertising. They're paying us to bring people in, and if we don't bring people in and it doesn't equal a certain amount of revenue, it's not worth it to them, which is just unfortunate, because a lot of the other things that a restaurant would pay for, they don't look at it that way. They do a remodeling on their bathroom. They don't try to judge how many customers that's bringing in to decide whether to do it or not. They just want to make the bathroom nice because people think it's a nice place because it has a nice bathroom. So that's really the way it was when I started. People hired music because they thought, hey, I just want this to be a classy place. Music will make this a classy place. People will see it and they'll come in. They'll choose me over somebody else because I got a band and the other guy doesn't. And there's still a couple of places. I'm playing a place next week that the guy actually told me that. He said, you know, I don't really need this, but my customers deserve it. I said, yes, that's exactly right, sir.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's half the battle, dealing with people that are trying to run a restaurant and things like that. And what about that? The fact that a lot of the music that we play, if we want to play it on a local level, we have to play it where people are drinking and eating. They're not necessarily there to watch us play.
It's often an afterthought. Yeah. Some places, actual music venue. Then some of those places pay decent. Some of them don't. There's a place that has music hall in the name of it here in Raleigh that actually I've never been able to make any money at.
Right.
Somebody's making money there. They're doing business, but the musicians aren't making any. So it's puzzling. I guess I think a big difference is in presentation. If you go up and set up in the corner, just start playing, nobody says anything, people are going to sit there and go, nobody made a big deal about this, so I guess it's not a big deal.
Right.
But if there was another place that here in Raleigh that moved to Rocky Mount, where the guy ran the place, the son of a famous sax player, he would get up and hype the band. Hey, everybody, there's a special band here tonight. Came all the way from such and such. They've been doing this for a long time. They were college roommates. So people love to hear that kind of thing.
Right.
They're really a great. We're really lucky to have them here. Put your hands together for a blah, blah, blah. And people take the cue, you know. So the presentation, I think, really can make a huge difference. And it's actually better if it's not somebody in the band. You know, somebody from the club says, hey, we've worked really hard to get these people in here. Pay attention, okay?
Good luck on that one. Yeah. But there are people that do that. And I totally agree. And I mean, I'm all for making it more of a show. I mean, I don't understand this whole thing of putting people in the corner and having it be in background. You know,
it doesn't have to be that way.
I know. And there's actually some places down here that are good because, you know, if all the seats are pointed towards where you're playing, then you know you're doing something right. I think see Grace, that happens.
Yes.
People talk a little bit to each other too loudly in there sometimes, but you know, it is what it is. But there's some places that I play in New York that are 55 Bar is an example. It's a very small bar type situation. If you went in there, you'd think you're just at some corner little pub, but you have these world famous musicians playing in the corner and everybody's glued to the edge of their seat and they're not saying a word. You know, they're listening to every note. And that's, for a musician, that's what's cool.
Yeah, totally.
You know, that's, you know, I don't do music for like to make myself feel good. I do music because I just like how it makes everybody around me feel. That's the part that I really like. I guess it does make me feel good. It
makes you feel good.
It does. Yeah, it does. But, you know, it's more about other people's, you know, like
you want people to enjoy it. It's not just a narcissistic thing.
Yeah, that's it. And when I, you know, and I come from a sports background as well, you know, I'm used to team. I'm just used to team. I want everybody, when everybody's winning together and then everybody's happy and then it's fun. It's not just like, hey, I'm the leader of the team. I want to win. Thanks, guys. That's not I don't like to go there. I like it to be kind of a team thing. There's certain ways you got to market things and things like that. But, you know, I think definitely the team thing, and that was one of the things that we were talking about was, you know, I think it is, and I agree with you. I think it is part, you know, in the medium, large markets, in the smaller markets, I think it's definitely, there's guys out there that are really good at advertising themselves and pumping themselves and doing all that. And I think that's good, but I think you still need to have an awareness of the other guys in the scene. It's not a competition. You're not trying to outdo that person. There's enough gigs to go around.
Yeah, I've always felt that way. I try not to get too worried about competition. I feel like we all need to succeed here. There's lots of gigs out there.
That's it.
Lots of good players who want to play together. I don't feel like I'm playing against people. I mean, that's not something you do in music. You play with people, not against them.
Right. And hopefully most of the people out there that are being professional aren't into the competitive part of it as much. I think if you're competitive in music, you should be competitive with yourself. It's like golf. You're trying to get better in golf, trying to get better in music, because the better you are, the more fun you have.
Indeed.
So, and the more fun everybody has around you. Well, Ben, I've really enjoyed having you on. And if
thanks, Dave.
And I look forward to playing with you this coming Thursday, July 9th at Seagrace in Raleigh.
9 p.m.
From 9 to 12. And we'll be in there. And hopefully people will be sitting on the edge of their seats, looking and listening to every note, leaning forward and listening to every note. So I enjoy it. All right, Ben, thank you again. And I'm sure I'll have you back on, and we may actually include you in the Music Biz concert series at some point.
That'd be excellent.
So we have some cool stuff going on. All right. Well, thanks, Ben.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right. So we will be right back with more Music Biz Radio right after this.
Hi, it's Osnoy here, and you're listening to Music Biz Radio with David Richards.
So you want to be a musician? Well, maybe you had better get in the shed. Welcome to one of the most important parts of the show, In the Shed. This week, drummer Ivan Hampden Jr. tells you how to get your groove on. I would suggest you take his advice. It is very groovy indeed.
Hi, this is Ivan Hampden Jr., and you're in the shed. So my advice to young drummers is understand what your purpose is. Time. The metronome is the best thing you can work with. Understand time, understand the sides of time, behind the time, ahead of the time, and dead on the time. And when you work and practice, make sure you have something to work with. Go for it, fellas.
Hi, this is Jeremy Pelt, and you are listening to Music Biz Radio with David Richards.
Hi, this is David Richards, host of Music Biz Radio. We really hope you enjoy the program, and we want to remind you that Music Biz Radio is a listener-supported and limited sponsorship show brought to you every week on musicbizradio.com. We invite you to go to our website and check out all the new merchandise. We also have great ways you can be a part of the show. Go to the contribution section of our webpage, and you can find ways that not only can you help keep the show going, but you can also get some great Music Biz Radio merch. If you're a person or business interested in sponsoring the show in some way, we have a variety of sponsorship packages. Just go to the link on our contact page. Thanks again for listening to Music Biz Radio. Well, that's going to do it for another Music Biz Radio. I'd like to thank all of the guests on the show today, including Ivan Hampden Jr. and also Ben Palmer. We hope you enjoyed the show and join us every week. We invite you to check out the show archives at musicbizradio.com and also go to our Facebook page and give us a like. It's facebook.com/musicbizradio. Thanks again. We hope you enjoyed the show.
Thank you for listening to this week's show. We hope that you enjoyed the program and will join us every week. For information on being a guest or just to contact us, please email us at trumpetdr@gmail.com. This now concludes our transmission.